Hey, good morning. It's your girl, Miss Shay, with another juke out tip on a nice warm Georgia morning. It's kind of toasty already. It's barely 8:30. So the tip is switch it up. So what do I mean by that? I think a lot of times when people think of being a vegan, they have a natural barrier up because in their mind, they're like, hey, rabbit food, I'm not going to enjoy what I do, right? What I eat. And I think it's because people are, let's just say, set in their ways. They're used to what they're used to. And so they are not necessarily open to eating different stuff. So I want you to think about different cuisines from different ethnic groups, right? The foods in the world are as varied as the people who live within them. So I'll use myself as an example. I have lived overseas. I've lived in LA a couple of times, and it was only because I had to live in these different areas or these different countries that I was exposed to different foods. And I opened myself to eating what the natives ate or what was close to me. So for example, when I lived in LA, the second time around, I lived in Little Tokyo, and what was close to me were nothing but Asian markets. If I wanted to eat so-called soul food or comfort food, I would have to go way out of my way to get that food. And so I went to the markets and I began to dibble and dabble. And there were let's just start with the produce. There was a bunch of produce I had never heard of or seen before. And I got to it. A lot of the native foods and stuff were all in Korean or whatever it was language. And I just went on faith. And I said, oh, let me try to make this stuff. So, and what's so interesting is I'm born and raised in the city of Chicago, and you may have heard that Chicago is the most segregated city, at least in the United States. And so, but it also means it has a very diverse population. So we have a Chinatown. And when I was coming up, I lived on the north side for a great point in time. When I came up on the north side, you would pass Chinatown and it always smelled horrible to me. So it never appealed to me to eat, what they had, right? So eating quote unquote Chinese food that I was accustomed to with shrimp fried rice and all of that, but to go over to their area and indulge was beyond me. So to think that I lived that close in proximity to another culture and didn't take advantage of it, spoke to where my mind was at the time, right? But think about what I missed out on. And it wasn't until like 25 years later that I was placed in another Asian area and was open at that time. So that's just one small example. But what I'm saying is, if you would give yourself a chance to go shop at different places too, not just Ralph's, Jewel, or Kroger, or none of those guys. They have their little tiny ethnic sections, but I'm saying, like, seek out a full-on Asian market. Now I'm here in Georgia and we have a H Mart and everything, but the Asian markets are not in abundance like I had in Los Angeles. So I like to go to the farmers market, excuse me. And their farmers markets are not outdoors, so I have to drive all the way to DeKalb farmers market, which is the one I like. And they have the real international setup. You will find that there are different herbs and seasonings and sauces that are particular for a specific ethnic group, like the curries or the different jerk sauces if you want to go explore the islands. But even they use their version of curries. And then there are vegetables and stuff like that. And you can play around with that. And I'm never bored. I love to cook. So I want to just put that on your bird. about those things, I want to reference an interaction I had with a sibling of mine. And I had experimented with the meaty, the steak alternative that I showed y'all the other day. And he was like, I ain't eating no fake steak. I was like, it's mushroom root. It's mushroom root. And he had eaten the oyster mushrooms that I had fried that took on the resemblance of fried chicken. But he was against that. And it just really showed me, and that's why I made this video, because I thought to myself, I think that's a mentality of the larger population when it comes to vegan. And this is my final encouragement for you guys. Again, I am born and raised from the city of Chicago, lived a few spaces, but I lived there most of my life, I would say. And by and large, if I can be born and raised in the city of Chicago, I'm raised by regular folk who ain't know nothing about, didn't care nothing about no vegetarianism or veganism. If I can change or be open, then so can you. Take the limits off. You might like something.